Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea. What if the entire world just went silent, even for a moment? We're going to explore this through a really powerful poem that imagines exactly that.
No, really think about it for a second. What would actually happen if, for one single brief moment, every person, every car, every machine on the entire planet just stopped?
So this incredible thought experiment comes from the mind of the Nobel Prize-winning poet Pablo Neruda. His poem, Keeping Quiet, uses these beautiful, simple images to explore this very question.
All right, so how do we start this journey into quiet? Well, the poem kicks off with a surprisingly simple instruction for every single one of us.
And that's it. That's the whole invitation. It's a countdown, right? But not to some big, loud event. It's a countdown to a moment of shared, global peace. But why 12? The poem never really says, which kind of makes you wonder. Is it for the 12 hours on a clock, or maybe the 12 months in a year? Either way, it seems to stand for a whole cycle of time, inviting us to just step outside of that constant loop, just for a second.
And the rules for this moment? They couldn't be simpler. First, no speaking, in any language. That way all those barriers just fall away. Second, a complete stop, just for 1 second. And finally, a pause from all our frantic doing to not move our arms so much.
Okay, so let's imagine we all actually followed these rules. What would that moment of universal quiet actually feel like?
Well, Neruda calls it an exotic moment. And it's exotic not because it's from some faraway place, but because it's so completely alien to our normal lives, It's a sudden strangeness in a world that, let's be honest, never ever stops moving.
Just look at the contrast here. Our world is all about the rush, the noise of engines, the constant moving. But in the world of the poem, all of that gets replaced by stillness, by silence, and by this powerful feeling of togetherness.
Just try to picture that for a second. In that shared silence, with no language to divide us and no busy work to distract us, we would all just be, the entire human race together in one single silent experience.
But this isn't just about some warm, fuzzy feeling. If we all did this, what would the real-world consequences be? The poem suggests they'd be absolutely massive, transformative, even.
The first impact is huge, and it's environmental. Our relentless taking from nature would suddenly stop. The fisherman, who kind of represents all of humanity's constant hunt, would pause, giving the natural world a much-needed break.
And in that very same moment, our focus would flip from the outside world to ourselves. The man gathering salt, who is really a symbol for all of us caught in that daily grind, would finally get a chance to see the price he's paying, to actually look at his own hurt hands. It's a powerful idea about the kind of self-awareness that our hustle culture just doesn't leave room for.
So you see this wave of peace? It just keeps spreading outward. It goes from our relationship with nature to our relationships with each other. And then the poet tackles the most destructive human activity of all, war.
In this quiet moment, the people who create conflict, whether it's environmental destruction, what he calls green wars, or actual human violence with gas and fire, they would just step away. They'd put on clean clothes, which is this great symbol for a fresh start, and just walk with their so-called enemies, their brothers, simply doing nothing.
Now I know what you might be thinking. It would be easy to hear all this and assume the poet is just saying we should all do nothing, forever. But he's really, really careful to make a crucial distinction here.
And Neruda makes this point crystal clear. He says, I want no truck with death. This stillness isn't about ending life or embracing nothingness. No way. It's about finding a different, maybe more meaningful way to be alive.
See, the real goal here is something called introspection. This isn't an empty pause. It's a full one. It's a moment for active, conscious reflection, a chance to look inward instead of constantly pushing forward.
So what's the point of all this? Well, the poem suggests it's to interrupt this deep sadness. The sadness that comes from never really understanding ourselves because we're so busy keeping our lives moving. This silence, he says, is the antidote.
For his final, really profound lesson, Neruda turns to the greatest teacher we have, the natural world itself. He basically says, hey, maybe the earth can teach us something here, that it holds the secret to understanding this kind of productive, life-giving stillness.
Think about winter, right? On the surface, everything looks dead, barren, completely still. But we all know that underneath that quiet surface, Life is just gathering its strength, getting ready for a big comeback. That is the kind of quiet the poem is talking about, a stillness that actually leads to new life.
And so the poem comes full circle. He ends his lesson right where he began. He says, "Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go." It's like he's shown us the path, and now he's stepping back and passing the experience directly over to us.
Which, of course, leaves us with the big question. In a world that is constantly screaming for our attention, maybe this simple invitation is more radical than ever. If you actually took him up on it, if you counted to 12 and were truly still, what do you think you would find?